Hi everybody, it's Rob here, and this will be the last in the series of 6 videos which go through the advanced actions available to the individual factions in the city of Staines. In this video, we're going to deal with the Circle, the blue faction, in the most complex of the factions because of a few additional mechanics that are associated with this particular faction. As before, I've laid out the 10 cards available to the circle. But before doing so, I want to point out these 2 decks, both of which will be in the possession of the circle player at the start of the game. The first, and they look the same because they have the same backs for reasons which will become apparent. The first is the pile of what will be 7 event cards. You remember that at the beginning of the game, the circle player would take used event cards uh, and add 3 of those to the event deck and shuffle them in, leaving him or her with 7 cards at their disposal to be used in the course of the game. That deck should be kept secret from the deck below it, from which I've extracted 2 cards, and this is known as the Forbidden deck. This is a deck of 16 cards. Each of those cards have a name, an effect, and 1 or 2 forbidden rune symbols below. Because one of the alternative victory condition for the circle is to have all 8 of those forbidden runes. Now, these cards event deck in the course of the game, and they are only effective if they are flipped from the event deck. When that happens, then they take effect. Some of them, in particular the ones containing 2 symbols, have a slightly less powerful effect, but obviously that's ameliorated by the fact that they have 2 rather than 1 symbol. They also have that symbol, which indicates that when they are drawn from the event deck, a further event card, not a forbidden card, but an event card, must be shuffled into the event deck. So each time one of these comes out, if it has 2 symbols on it, then the wizard player must put an additional event card into the event deck. Right, getting onto the cards. So the first card in question, Forbidden Runes, deals directly with that process. There are no costs. The requirement is a mere 8 levels, which should be attainable very easily. In fact, it should be the case at the beginning of the game. And the effect of this card is simply that you may shuffle a forbidden card into the event deck. And its secondary effect is for this card to be reshuffled into your draw deck. So effectively, you can cycle through this card fairly quickly. Another card which has a cost of 1 malady token, which must be placed on any of your leaders, has a minimum requirement of 8 leaders, but also requires that you have at least 2 exploration tokens, is Ancient Maps. The effect of Ancient Maps is that you draw 5 cards from the building deck. You look at them, you choose one, and you shuffle the remaining cards back into the building deck. This card, like Forbidden Runes, is then shuffled back into your draw deck. So as a secondary action, so it is a card that cycles through your deck quickly, as is Forbidden Runes. Uh, Bear in mind that for the circle, portals generate influence in addition to buildings and connections to the underworld below the city of Staines, and they come in 3 flavors: a 1, 2, or 3 strength, and the number indicates the number of influence the portal will generate for the circle in the influence phase. So Forge Portal then becomes An important card, once again, the cost is a malady token. Here, one of these two leaders must be active and at least level 2, and you must have at least one arcane or mystical building in play. You will have because you start the game with one. It's leader linked, so it can only be affected in a quarter where you have a leader. But the effect is that you discard sets of matches. Now remember, each building card has a type, an icon indicating its type. Matching means buildings that share the same icon. If you discard 2 matching, you can place a level 1 portal. If you discard 3, a level 2 portal, and if you discard 4 matching cards, you can place a level 3 portal. So this is an important card for influence generation for the circle. You can also notice that the second reaction links to building cards as well because it allows you to draw another building card. Remember, when you see the symbol, you can either take one from the row, in which case you must pay the requisite amount, or you can take one off the top of the deck, which uh, an action that doesn't cost you anything. Protective Ward is an interesting one. The leader known as the Witch's Shadow must be active on level 2, and you must have a total of 9 leader levels available. But this card will make you immune to the effect of the next event card activated. Now, bear in mind, as the Wizard player or the Circle player, you are responsible for certain of the event cards that are in the event deck. And knowing when those are to come up and when to play this card can be a huge benefit in that it can protect you from negative effects while all other players suffer them. Also, it protects you in the sense that while it's active for the remainder of the round, your leaders cannot be sent to. So there's a double-edged sword here as to when you play this card. If you play it earlier in the round, your leaders will get the second benefit for longer, but there's more chance that somebody could affect the event deck in the round. Whereas if you play it late, there's less chance that they could make changes to the event deck by shuffling cards in or out. Um, but it isn't in play very long, and therefore you don't get the second benefit for very long. In any event, the secondary power is to convert one influence anywhere in the city. Reanimation is what it suggests. The requirements are that that particular leader be active, that he be level 2, and that you have at least city for the circle. It's also the only, I believe, card in the circle's deck that has the Royal Council icon and can potentially be played then even if you don't have the requirements. But the effect is to remove a leader from the graveyard, return them to their faction board, but they are now level 1 and have 1 malady token on them. The additional benefit is that you may use that leader when you take basic actions for the remainder of the game. They're effectively, to a limited extent, under your control for the rest of the game. The secondary effect is a treasure, which is always valuable. Then we go down to clairvoyance. Clairvoyance has a cost of an influence. It has a requirement that you have at least 1 treasure on your faction board and that the circle has at least 6 influence in the game. And what it allows you to do is to immediately take 2 of the available quarter actions without having a leader in those quarters, effectively doubling up your use of the quarter action and not requiring a leader in a specific quarter in order to do so, making it a much more powerful option than simply taking the basic action known as quarter. The secondary action is interesting too because it allows you to gain a vote in the Royal Council, which is obviously only relevant if the government posture is council or proportionate, but nevertheless valuable. Undiscovered is a card that links to the event deck and to some of the other cards. This particular leader must be active on level 2. If she is, you can take the action, which is to look at the top two cards of the event deck. You then decide which of those cards to put on the top and which of those cards to put on the bottom of the deck. If you want, you can also choose to immediately activate the top card of the event deck and have its effects occur. Um, this is obviously a way of manipulating the event deck and a way of potentially putting very harmful cards on the top of the deck while your protective ward is in place, which would protect you from those effects. The secondary action is a movement, so a leader may move as part of the secondary action. And you'll note that thus far, and in fact, for all of the cards, none of the circle cards requires a dice roll to activate. Uh, the thematic implication is that the wizards have ways of messing with fate and therefore the chances of success. Third last card available to the circle player is known as Eldritch Surge. The leader, known as Mad Bartholomew, must be active and at least level 2 to play this card. And the effect is that you will have one of your portals in play. Now, this is a negative in that you won't then have access to the influence growth that portals provide. However, the other effect is that all leaders of other factions in a quarter containing a portal take a malady token. So it's a way of putting a lot of malady tokens onto other leaders very quickly, particularly if there are a lot of them in a quarter in which you have a portal. The drawback is you must remove the portal permanently. Secondary effect is a card draw, as is the case in Forge Portal. Then we have what I consider to be an underrated card, uh, and this is a card called Contagion, which requires one influence to be removed from the board, and a requirement that you have at least one contest victory. Uh, if the cost is paid and the requirement is met, then you may transfer 2 malady tokens from any of your leaders to leaders anywhere in the city. Now that excludes leaders on faction boards, but is very effective, particularly if you have regard to the fact that several of the circle's cards have a cost which requires the placing of a malady token on certain of your leaders. This is a way of transferring those malady tokens to leaders in any other quarter. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to only transfer onto each leader. You can, in fact, transfer the 2 malady tokens onto a single leader should you wish. For this reason, it's not surprising that the secondary effect is to place a discontent token in the city. And just a reminder that discontent tokens can only be placed in quarters which don't already have one. Lastly, Lycanthropy. Uh, Dr. Ursatz is the leader who must be active and at least level 2 to play this card. The cost is a malady token, which will in all likelihood be placed on Dr. Ursatz. And the effect of this card, which is a leader linked, so you do have to have a leader there, is to convert a number of rats in the quarter up to the level. So that's the leader that takes the effect, not Dr. Ursatz's level, although he may be that leader. But you can convert a number of rats equal to that number from rats into influence for the circle. So the rats are turning into wizards effectively. Um, Now, obviously, there need to be the requisite number of rats in that quarter for this effect to happen. Um, but if you convert at least one rat this way, then the secondary effect takes place, which is to place a discontent token on an available quarter within the city. So those are all the cards available to the Circle faction, a faction that, for to a large extent, manipulates the flow of time, and the occurrence of the otherwise random events that would come out of the event deck, together with its forbidden cards that allow it to gain significant benefits, but only if those cards are flipped up from the event deck during the event phase, or potentially earlier should you use the undiscovered card. But if you enjoy a faction that manipulates these things, and uh, although it adds a layer of complexity, then I suggest the Circle would be a faction you may want to play. But in any event, those are the Circle. I hope you have got a benefit from this video, and it's made you interested in playing the Circle. Um, Whichever faction you choose to play, have fun doing it. Remember, please give me some feedback if and when you do. But otherwise, enjoy, and we will move on to another topic in the next series of videos. This is Rob saying goodbye.